So the most recent TWAB was thankfully PvP focused. If you saw my video, we need to talk about PvP again. This is something that I'd asked for. Now I'm not going to go through the entire TWAB here because it's a big one. If I did a deep dive into it, then this would be a very long video. As to Cross has a complete breakdown for those who want to check that out, where he goes through the other things mentioned in the TWAB, such as the upcoming events surrounding the Elixnik Order. In this video, I'm primarily going to be focusing on some of the PvP changes and giving my initial thoughts and reactions. I'll do my best to keep this as short as possible, but we'll see how it goes. There's some good and some bad here, and we're going to talk about it. After that, we'll talk about the concerns I still have for PvP, so let's get into it. I'm going to start with the big topics here. First off, some changes are being made to our core playlists. Control and Clash will be put inside of one playlist instead of being in the rotator. This unfortunately means that Clash will likely fall victim to SBMM, or skill-based matchmaking, just as Control has. Rumble is also being moved into the rotator. Gotta say, really not happy about this move at all. With Rumble being moved into the rotator, this basically means we likely won't have any real casual mode in the game at all, at least for now. What would have been better if they wanted to move Rumble into the rotator is to have just replaced Rumble with Clash and left Clash as is, with only connection-based matchmaking. I do understand what they're trying to do here. Condensing our playlists means healthier populations and with it better connections. I really just think they could have gone about it in a better way. That being said, we do have some interesting matchmaking changes coming. From the TWAB, as well as a tweet from DMG, it seems that Bungie is still keeping an eye on skill-based matchmaking. Some of the changes listed included adding what they're calling dynamic skill ranges to SBMM. Here's what the TWAB said. At a high level, this feature increases the skill window our system looks for when matchmaking if you are in a low population skill bracket or during a particularly low population time, e.g. 2:30 AM Pacific when many are sleeping or just waking up. The intention here is to increase the window enough to give those playing at low population times additional good connections to choose from without harming the skill balance significantly. This is the next step in our evolution of loose SBMM that we introduced in Season 18. Pretty interesting change here. I'm still of the opinion that instead of SBMM inside of casual modes, all we should really have is outlier protection, meaning someone with very low stats or someone who's new to the game won't be matched against someone like, say, Frostbolt. But outside of that, I still firmly believe that in casual modes, that connection should be the absolute priority with matchmaking. But, of course, we'll see how this pans out. The next step Bungie is taking is introducing fireteam-based matchmaking, which will try to match stacks or partial stacks with or against teams with a similar structure. Meaning if you load into PvP with a full stack, it will at first attempt to match you against other full stacks. But if the wait time is too long, it will make adjustments accordingly. Meaning you may instead match against a team of 5 with a solo, a fire team of 4 with 2 solos or a duo fire team, so on and so forth. This is good, primarily because if you're a solo player, matching against a stack can be incredibly frustrating, so hopefully this does help to balance things out a bit. The next big thing is some major changes are coming to comp. First up, comp will now be a ranked mode with a ladder system. Let me just read through this real quick. So from the TWAB, in Season 19, we are removing Glory and adding a 3v3 ranked playlist competitive division, which is a true ladder-based system. There are 7 divisions, each with 3 subdivisions: Copper, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Adept, and Ascendant. Our goal is to provide players with ladders to climb and divisions to achieve, giving a more accurate representation of skill than our current Glory system. Players who surpass Gold and begin to chip away at Platinum, Adept, and Ascendant will represent some of the best Crucible players that our community has to offer. Let's talk a bit about how you climb the ladder. This is a higher level explanation of how things work. We'll be releasing a help article closer to launch to go a bit further in depth. At the start of the season, you will begin a placement series, during which you will not gain any division rating for the first 7 games. After the 7th game, you will complete the placement series and are placed into a division based on skill. For the first season, the highest you can be placed is Gold 3. In future seasons, you will be placed closer to your previous competitive division. As you continue to compete in the competitive division, your division rating is adjusted based on 4 major factors: match outcome, whether you win or lose; division inflation/deflation, how far above or below your division is compared to your skill; Match performance, how well you performed on a match-to-match basis. Player to lobby skill delta, how your skill compares to everyone else in the match. As you earn and lose division rating, if you gain enough rating to move up between subdivisions, example, from Gold 2 to Gold 1, you automatically enter the next subdivision. Same goes for moving down subdivisions. If you gain enough rating to move up a division, example, from Gold 1 to Platinum 3, you enter a promotion series where you must win 2 out of 3 games to be promoted to the next division. Similarly, if you lose enough rating to move down a division, example, from Gold 3 to Silver 1, you enter a relegation series, where you must win 2 out of 3 games to remain in your current division. Upon reaching Gold or higher, your division rating is subject to decay on a weekly basis, i.e., you will lose division rating if you haven't played enough matches recently. Also, we will have a small intro quest that will demonstrate the competitive division system and unlock a reward listed later in the TWAB. This quest must be completed once for each account and will be available from Shaxx once you unlock Crucible as a new light or immediately for veteran players. This is good. Really, each of our core modes, Quick Play, Trials, and Comp, really need their own identity, and this does help to give Comp its own identity. Your ranking will also affect the Crucible rewards that you earn. Basically, you'll get a multiplier depending on your rank, such as with the Platinum rank, you'll have a 1.3x multiplier for your Crucible rewards. I'll let you all read through the details of that on your own, because what comes next is actually very interesting and I want to move on. Next up, we're finally getting a playlist-specific reward for Comp in the form of Rose. Now, Rose was a hand cannon back in Forsaken. It was part of the original exotic quest for Lumina. It was a good hand cannon. The perks on it weren't that great, but it just felt good. Well, Rose is coming back as a weapon specific for Comp, and it will now have random rolls. But even more exciting, it's a hybrid hand cannon. According to the TWAB, it's a 140 RPM hand cannon that has the movement bonus of a 150 hand cannon. For newer players out there, we used to also have 150 RPM hand cannons, but all of them except for Sunshot were eventually turned into 140s. The nice thing about 150s, aside from the slightly higher fire rate, was that they were lightweight archetype weapons, meaning you got the movement bonus that you get from using a lightweight weapon. Basically, when you use a weapon in that archetype, you move faster, and it actually feels really nice. Now, as far as the rolls go, here's what they had to say about it. Its perk list is built from popular consistency perks designed to highlight 3v3 play. On top of that, we'll also get random rolled grips instead of an origin trait. Now, I'm actually really pretty excited for this. I love that we'll be getting the 150 movement bonus especially, and quite frankly, I'd like to see this happen to all 140 hand cannons. Anything that encourages people to move around and play more aggressively is a good thing, and it would help hand cannons compete better with pulse rifles and sidearms, because right now they are definitely struggling in that area inside of the current meta. So as a whole, we have lots of good changes coming to Comp. Granted, quite frankly, these changes should have come a couple years ago, but later is better than never. I am disappointed that we're not getting a new mode for it though, or at least there's no mention of one here. I like survival just fine, but after playing it for years now, for me it's just gotten stale. On top of that, outside of Rose, there wasn't any mention of any additional incentives to play Comp. They did say that in the future they'll look at cosmetic rewards inside of Comp, but unless we have some way of flexing our rank, particularly at the higher ranks such as Platinum or Ascendant, then in a game like Destiny there really isn't much of a point to actually grinding out those ranks. For that reason, outside of playing every week to get Rose, I don't know how often I'll be playing it for the most part. I'm tired of survival, and I hope that eventually we get a new mode for Comp, and some way of showing off our placement in the new ranking system, like maybe some shaders or ornaments, maybe some sort of symbol next to your name, just anything that lets people flex. But overall, very positive changes coming to Comp. So those are the big things that stuck out to me. The last few things here I'm just going to go over quickly. First up, Shaxx is finally getting the vendor rework. In Season 19, we'll be able to focus engrams with our old friend Lord Shaxx. On top of that, they've made a change so that we don't have to actually pull the engrams into our inventory first. We'll be able to just focus them directly from Shaxx. This is actually super nice. It's really annoying having to pull every engram before focusing it with Lord Saladin. So this is a really nice change. That definitely helps with the convenience aspect here. Granted, I'm really not a fan of most of the Crucible weapons. Honestly, outside of like Frozen Orbit and Out of Bounds, I don't really think any of them are really worth going for. But hey, hopefully that will change. On the bright side, at least now we do have another place to focus armor. That might be helpful with build crafting if they stop always dropping with terrible stats. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but every time you get a piece of armor from Shaxx, like 9 times out of 10, the stats are going to be terrible, so hopefully they fix that as well. Next up here, just on a quick note, they've introduced the new Crucible seal. This is presumably the replacement to Unbroken, and it's called Glorious. We have a screenshot on the TWAB, which gives you an idea of what it will look like, as well as what some of the objectives for it may be. It does look pretty interesting. Next up, we got a slight preview into what next season's Iron Banner mode will be. It'll be called Fortress, and according to the TWAB, the core gameplay is capturing and holding zones. If that sounds like zone control to you, you'd be right. The real fun begins when Keitel gets involved, but we'll leave some of this for you to experience firsthand when Iron Banner Fortress launches on January 3rd, 2023. Let's just say a few of you may be dying to cap a hill. So to me, that sounds like we're getting a King of the Hill type of mode here, which could honestly be a blast. I'm mostly curious about what they mean by when Keitel gets involved. In the screenshot, it does show some Cabal turrets. So I'm really interested to see what this means, like when you cap a point, do Cabal spawn to help you defend it? Is this going to be a new sort of PvPvE mode? Honestly, I have no idea, but I really can't wait to see how it plays. I'm just praying it will be as fun as Eruption was, because I really don't want to see another Iron Banner mode tank like Rift did. Oh yeah, it also looks like we're getting some OG Destiny 1 Iron Banner armor back, and just look how dope this looks. Like, the Titan straight up looks like a medieval knight, the Hunter's got that sick kind of like Ulfhednar looking cloak, and Warlocks are still wearing dresses. They did also let us know what new weapons we'll be getting in Iron Banner. Looks like an auto rifle and a slug shotgun. Interesting choices to be sure. I don't really care for slugs, but I'm always down to run a good auto rifle, so hopefully that one turns out okay. Next up, some changes are coming to Trials. This is a really quick one, so I'll just read through it. While Season 19 has much of its focus on general Crucible playlists, matchmaking, and the introduction of the competitive division, we do have some upkeep planned for Trials of Osiris. For starters, we're following tradition with 2 new weapon rewards for players to hunt for. Whether you are hungry for a base model or the fabled Adept variant, we have a new machine gun and 140 hand cannon up for grabs. This is where I'd show you an example image of the Saint 14 vendor screen, but we don't want to spoil any gear icon watermarks for the new season just yet. Additionally, we're looking to add FBMM into Trials of Osiris in the future. By introducing these matchmaking changes to the playlist, we're looking to provide a larger sense of fairness for smaller fire teams and eliminate the need for a freelance node. Solos can match solos or fill in for fire teams of duos. Fire teams of 3 will match with fire teams of 3. While we don't have changes to the Flawless pool for Season 19, we are working on a new paradigm that removes the Flawless pool, but still provides protection for players working on Trials reputation rewards. Expect more information later in Season 19, as our goal is to have a Trials Labs during Season 20. So first, I'm really excited about the new Trials guns. It doesn't really surprise me that we're getting a hand cannon. I had actually kind of expected it, but I really just hoped that Igneous might come back. But hey, I do still like 140s a lot, and for that matter, I'm just excited to see another machine gun. Will it be as good as Hammerhead? Probably not, but just let me dream here, guys. As far as the Flawless pool goes, it is interesting that they're looking at doing something to remove it potentially. I was never a huge Trials player because I just don't really care for elimination as a mode, so I never had any crazy strong opinions on the Flawless pool, but I'm definitely curious to see how that ends up turning out. Lastly, they also discussed quitter penalties. Basically, they're going to be loosening that up a bit, making it so that you can see a timer for how long you have before you can play PvP again if you received a penalty, and will be evaluating if it's needed at all at this point. Quitter penalties honestly really just need to go inside of quick play. Like, I don't have a problem with it inside of, say, Trials or Comp, because those modes actually have stakes. But inside of a casual mode, it's just not good. Punishing people for leaving a casual match that they're not having fun in, whether it's because they got a bad map or matched against a team of Titans aping around with Shoulder Charge and Juggernaut, it really just isn't a good look. Like, while I'm not really happy if people leave inside of control, I also don't really care that much. Quick play has zero stakes, so honestly, there's really no reason to get super uptight about people leaving it in anyway. So those are the big things that stuck out to me. This was a good TWAB, probably the best for PvP we've had in a while, at the very least the best we've had for the last 3 seasons or so, but I do still have some concerns for the sandbox as a whole, and particularly with comp. While they have talked about matchmaking at length here, they still have not addressed the issues with our movement inside of PvP. Nothing about airborne effectiveness or other movement nerfs. They really need to address this. AE needs to either be tweaked substantially or reverted completely. On top of that, it's probably time for the slide nerfs to be reverted as well. Destiny is a movement shooter. It has some of the best movement of any first-person shooter out there, and Bungie really needs to lean into that and not move away from it. It's part of what makes Destiny unique in a world of what are often repetitive first-person shooters. So please, as always, keep it respectful, but we should really encourage Bungie to make movement more of a priority inside of PvP. The other thing as well is that the reality here is unless we see some major changes to PvP in general, such as better balancing of weapons, armor, and abilities, issues with connection and hit registration, such as, those times when you get hit through a wall because you dipped behind cover on your screen, but for some reason you were still out in the open on your opponent's screen, that sort of thing, as well as further loosening of SBMM inside of casual modes. Without all of that, PvP isn't going to feel any better than it does now. That alone is the reason why, outside of survival again being stale for me, I probably won't be playing comp much outside of grinding for rows. The same can be said of trials. Outside of farming for the hand cannon and the machine gun, I probably won't be playing it that often. The really big issue here is that there's just too much cheese inside of PvP. Too many broken weapons, too many broken abilities and supers, and too many broken armor pieces. Playing against this stuff is frustrating enough inside of quick play, but it gets exponentially worse inside of comp and trials, because the more competitive it gets, the more cheese that you'll see, and you will also be forced into using that in order to try and get wins. This makes for frustrating matches, boring matches, and repetitive matches. So the reality is that unless Bungie addresses the constant ability spam, the scuffed weapon, ability, and armor balancing, PvP is going to continue to be miserable, and our more competitive modes will continue to be all but unplayable. I don't claim to be any sort of elite player, but there's nothing more frustrating than having good positioning, landing your shots, and still losing a gunfight because a warlock hit you with dead messenger and immediately followed up with lightning surge, or a titan hits you at auto rifle range with their melee, or a hunter who's done nothing but spam invis with gear falcons absolutely melts you with a rat king with gear falcon's free damage boost. Until the sandbox as a whole receives some serious balancing, PvP is going to continue to be a miserable experience, and it will only be worse inside of trials and comp. But outside of that, this was a really good TWAB. I'm excited for most of these changes, and especially excited for some new guns. This is a step in the right direction, but to really put us on a good path, Bungie will need to fix the balancing inside of our current sandbox and use better playtesting in future ones. On top of that, when broken weapons, armor, or abilities arise, Bungie cannot, absolutely cannot, wait months and months to address it. If we have another extreme outlier, such as, Lawrence Driver, then first, it shouldn't make it through testing in the first place, and second, if it still does, then it needs to be handled within days or weeks, not months. For the record too, I don't expect Destiny to ever be a perfectly balanced game. There's just so much in it, so many guns, so many different pieces of armor, so many different abilities, it's just not possible. But the state that it's in currently is just unacceptable. What we really need next from Bungie is another long TWAB discussing what they plan to do to address the sandbox as a whole, as well as a general timeline for it. Otherwise, it will only continue to worsen and the player population will continue to drop. That being said, as a whole, I feel more positive about what's to come. Hopefully Bungie will continue to try and put us on a good path for PvP. But that's all for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to leave me a like, and don't forget to hit that subscribe icon with the bell icon, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.